Hello there, I am Rafael de Furia, back at it again on another Friday night, hopefully closer, moving forward into that direction of what we can finally call again another beautiful Friday night. But this week, I happen to have some footage left over from a video that I did a couple weeks ago because it was just going to be way too long otherwise. So even though the videos are kind of separate, it is a little bit of a part two to that video that I did a couple weeks ago. I'll leave it up in the corner up above over here or here, one of these corners. You'll find the links to the videos. But before we get too much deeper and before we get into the rest of the video, if you would like to see more content like this about moving to Italy, Italian dual citizenship, and living life abroad, please be sure to subscribe with that notification bell turned on. And if you could also give this video a like and share it with your friends, that would be greatly appreciated, as it does help out the channel. And of course, as always, the biggest thank you to those of you who are helping to make these videos possible through Patreon. You guys are beyond amazing. Anyway, let's just get straight into it and answer some more of your questions about life in Italy and the situation here. Actually, sorry, there is one last little thing I do want to say, just to kind of preface things. I do talk about the situation about traveling here to Italy. This week, there's been a lot of talk in the news about the European talking about blocking Americans and people from some other countries from being able to come to the European Union, which of course includes Italy. So keep in mind that this was recorded before this kind of uptick in the news. And I've decided, yes, there are people who are talking about this right now, but I would rather wait until everything is set in stone before talking about something that may or may not happen. So at some point, if that does get nailed down, then I'll probably talk at least a little bit about that, depending on how things go. But anyway, let's get into it for real this time. And moving on to the next one from Juan B. He's from Buenos Aires. His question was about Venice. I've been getting asked a lot recently by people who are wanting to visit Italy about the situation in here. There's another one of these that I'll answer also very soon. But he has purchased a ticket to go to Venice in October. And do I think the city will be open to tourism that season, especially for South Americans? Honestly, I don't know. I think anybody who says that they have a good idea that is not a public official, even some public officials, are really just kind of pulling thoughts, random thoughts out of the air, because nothing is still really so well known about this situation. We're still kind of walking around in the dark. But is Venice currently open right now for Italians to visit and some Europeans? Then yeah, that's possible. But if it's a good idea, that's a different question and a subject I have recently spoken about in a video here. And moving on to the next one from CP. Rafael, who is your favorite Italian football team? You assume I watch sports. I am not the biggest sports fan. Even in the States, I wouldn't say I really watched sports that often, so I don't really have a team here. From a username, I'm not quite sure how to say this. Swilfy? We'll see. Anyway. Hey, my sister and I are starting to look into moving to Italy from Canada. We both have citizenship through Iure Sanguinis and have been watching your videos about it all on YouTube. They've been so helpful so far, and I just have a few questions, and I'm wondering if you could help me with them. How did you go about getting an apartment, bank account, codice fiscale, carta d'identità, and your tessera sanitaria when you first arrived? So I got my codice fiscale at the same consulate where I got my Italian passport when I received my recognition of citizenship. Carta d'identità, you can only get that after you have the apartment. The bank account, that was a bit tricky to get because when I first got here, I didn't have a home address, so I happened to have a friend who offered to let me use his address at the beginning, like just for a few days, because I needed a bank account so that I could set up monthly payments with the old landlord when I was in Merano, but I couldn't get the bank without having the apartment, so it was just kind of like this whole weird thing. And the bank said, yeah, if you want to change your address, it's not a big deal. That was the specific bank I was talking to there. Different banks may deal with the situation differently, but I got lucky in that case. And getting an apartment, that is pure luck. Of course, depending on where you are, if you are just coming to Italy for the first time, especially, even if you're an Italian citizen and you've never worked here before and you don't have an income here, you don't have something rooting you here, a lot of landlords really don't like that. And anyway, I've made a video about this before, so I will link that up in the corner above. So I would say check that out, because probably some of my best answers will be there. But I would say all of this kind of really boils down to luck. But then also the tessera sanitaria, that's something that you can only get once you've got the apartment. Well, actually, that's something that you only can get once you've started the residency process for the apartment that you're living in. And you can only get the residency done if you're actually, like, if it's a proper contract for an apartment. There's different types of apartments that exist out there. There's some apartments that are zoned as offices, and you cannot make that into a home, where you can actually, a residence, I should say. So you have to choose wisely when you're choosing the right apartment. You have to, like, actually make sure, like, is this zoned as a domicile? Like, can I make this my home? There will be landlords who don't even want to do that because they want themselves to be registered there, maybe for tax reasons. I don't know. There's all these different kinds of things that people do. So you have to, like, really look at that closely. And then the message continued to go on. It seems like you have to have a permanent address for them. So my real question was, did you rent an Airbnb or something like that before you found a place and use the Airbnb address? No, you can't use an Airbnb address unless you get specific permission from the Airbnb host. But most Airbnb hosts will not want to do it because they have to go and register, and it becomes a whole big headache for them. That's one of the reasons why rental contracts in Italy are a bit longer, because people don't want the headache of having to deal with all of these things, because there's a lot of red tape and it costs money every time you have to get a new person into an apartment. Also the message continued, are you fluent in Italian? No, I am not fluent in Italian. I can get by, kinda. And I would say I could more easily get by in the north than the south. Even, like, if you're talking about Rome, there are some accents from Rome that are very difficult for me to understand, but really anything that's kind of northern Italian, I understand that a little bit more easily. I'm trying to learn as much as I can go, because from what I gather in your videos, it's basically a necessity there. And yes, it is very definitely a necessity. If you are in a city, like a big city, it's needed less. But if you really want to function and become a contributing member of society here, you need to at least have some basic use of the language to get by day to day. The next one, I'm just going to give you an example. This one, I'm not going to tell the person's name because I don't want to embarrass anybody, but it kind of goes in line with a lot of messages that I get. I get a lot of very short, quick messages that say, hey, Rafael, how are you? Hey, Rafael, what's up? Hey, Rafael, how are you doing? Hey, Rafael, can I talk to you on the phone? Hey, Rafael, can I ask you a quick question? For the people who do ask me, can I ask you a quick question? My response is always the same thing. It looks like you may have already just done that. If you have any other questions, feel free to let me know. Hashtag dad jokes forever, and I'm not even a dad. But yeah, so these messages, if you have a question that you would like to ask me in private, the only request that I make is that you actually just write out the message. I can't promise that I can respond to everybody's message, but I try to respond to as many questions as I can in these videos so that people can benefit from the questions that other people have. Like I said, there are a lot of times when I've already talked about a subject, but like what's the case with this video, I'm happy to talk about it again, because as time goes on, I realize that not everybody is going to go over all 130 something videos that I've made on here. I realize that would be a very big undertaking. It's been a big undertaking to make them, but that it's difficult for me to just respond, hey, I'm doing great, how are you? So I end up not responding to a lot of these just because, unfortunately, like I said before, I just don't have the time to have a conversation with everybody. I would absolutely love to get to know all of you, and I've been blessed to get to know a few of you, and it's been really wonderful to have conversations with some of you guys. And so this is the thing that, again, kind of this is getting back into the thing. If I were to hop onto every phone call that I get like a couple dozen requests for phone calls every day, I really wish I could keep up with that, but it would take away from everything else that I'm doing, and I wouldn't be able to make these videos if I were to do that, unfortunately. Like I said, I wish I could, but this is just the situation. And this is a message from someone else who I won't name. I'm not going to say specifically who this person is, also because I don't want to bring any shame or anything. That they were saying, hey, I've been watching a bunch of your videos. I'm getting Italian citizenship, and I have a couple of questions. If you have the time, I'd love to talk. Thanks. If you have any questions, please feel more than free to just directly ask me those questions. You don't need to ask me if you can ask a question. You don't need to tell me that you have questions. You can just go ahead and ask them. I can't give you legal advice, but I can try and steer you in the right direction. And going on to the next one, this is from Danielle B. Hi, Rafael. I just watched your latest video and it made me wonder a few things. I'm from the Netherlands and we always spent our holidays at Lake Garda. We thought initially that we would have to spend our holidays this year in the Netherlands, but now it looks like we may be able to go in July. But using the mask seems to be necessary, and with the temperatures getting as high as they do, seems to be really unattractive. Just to get through this as fast as possible, I'm paraphrasing here. But do you think this is wise to go? Is the risk still high, and will the holiday still be fun? Do I think it's wise to go? Not necessarily. I don't think travel right now is the wisest thing to do. I think until we have a better handle on the situation, enjoying your home and enjoying your space around you is not the worst thing. But of course, I'm not a medical professional and just someone who talks about living life as an expat in Italy. So I can't say that it would be a good idea or a bad idea. Is the risk still high? It would seem to be, from everything that I've been seeing in the papers recently and on the news sites, but who knows? It could be that way, but again, there's so little that seems to be really solid at this point. And will the holiday still be fun? It depends on what you're talking about for fun, because if you're the type of person that likes to go clubbing and to these sorts of things, those places probably are not going to be open, or at least not going to be the same. It's not going to be the same as holidays that you've had in the past. Going to Lake Garda just in general is kind of more of a place where you go for a chilled out holiday or relaxed time rather than kind of something more big and exciting. So depending on your opinion of what fun is, it could be, but it won't be the same holiday that you've had in the past. So that's something to consider. And you have a lot of wonderful places in the Netherlands, so maybe it's worth exploring your home country. But there's one town, I can never remember the name. It's a town of just all canals and stuff. It's kind of, I think it's referred to as the Venice of the Netherlands. It's someplace that I have been dreaming of going for so long, even though clearly it's very different from Venice. I'm very curious to see this like little canal town. But to continue with Danielle's message, in Holland, we have to keep 1.5 meters distance, but with no mouth coverage. That's actually interesting that different countries have been doing this very differently. Even here in Italy, like the town I live in, they've been saying 1 meter distance. But when I was in Venice, I saw signs that were saying 2 meters. So I do think that's kind of interesting, the different approaches to the situation. How do you see summer in Italy? I don't like summers in Italy. I will be very honest about that. People love coming here in the summer. It is beautiful in the summer. But for me, that's the one thing about Italy I'm really not crazy about, because it does get hot here. I realize the question was probably more in regards to the situation, but I'm just going to answer that question in that way. For those of you who follow me on social media, you will know that my favorite weather would be called bad weather by most people. Anyway, we've covered a lot of ground in this video, but of course, if you do have any questions about moving to Italy, Italian dual citizenship, and living life abroad, I am more than happy to answer what questions I can, and especially if I can put it into a video to try and help more people. Like I said, I can't answer everybody, which I really wish I could do. At some point, my goal is, like I said in the past, is to open up some kind of organization or nonprofit or something where people can be there full time to answer these sorts of questions. But at this point, it's just me doing my thing. Anyway, my goal really is, like I've said a number of times throughout this video, is to try to help people as much as I can, to try and demystify the situation, to try and get as much out there so that people can approach life here in a realistic way, because there are so many times when people have that dream of the pizza, pasta, and amore, and they forget about the realistic side of things. I've done it. I'm not saying I'm innocent here. I'm saying that it is just something that is in our human nature, that we romanticize things. We romanticize about a place being better. Oh, if I move to this place, life will automatically become better. But that's not often the case, because we always bring ourselves with us no matter where we go. That's just the situation. Sometimes there are these internal things that we have to work on before our external world can change. Anyway, of course, a huge thank you to those of you who help make videos like this possible through Patreon. Thank you for helping to make these videos possible. As always, I am Rafael di Furia, and I will see you all next time. Later.